Welcome back to another edition of Just Talking with Joe Burdick. Um, Tonight, I'm talking to Shana Chappell. Shana is the mother of Kareem Nikoui. For anybody that don't know who Kareem is, Kareem was one of the 13 that was killed at AbbeyGate on August 26, 2021. And talking to Shana, she agreed to come on my podcast and tell us all about Kareem Nikoui, who he was, who he is, everything about him. And I'm so honored to talk to Shana. Shana, thanks for coming on my podcast with me. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Obviously, the anniversary was recent, and we talked before this, and I hate to meet you because of this, like this, but uh, I'm really interested in learning everything about Kareem and sharing it with people. So thank you for this.
Yeah, thank you.
So tell me, well, obviously, a couple of weeks ago, I did a thing here where I live in Seven Hills, and I organized a community day of mourning. Um, for me, it's disappointing when I talk to people and they they've already forgotten. And in Ohio, we had one service member that was part of the 13 in Ohio. And I think probably most Ohioans, with the exception of where he lives, most Ohioans probably can't even say his name. And I made a promise 3 years ago to Max Soviak's mom to keep his memory alive any way I could. And that promise is extended to not only the Soviaks, but to you and the other Gold Star families as well. So sharing Kareem's story, well, first of all, at the event on the 26th, I was able to get about 100 people, and they all said Kareem's name in unison after I said it, which I was very happy about. Um, we got two mayors that issued declarations, proclamations, which you'll be getting in the mail.
Okay.
Um, but it was an honor for me to be able to help keep Kareem's memory alive in a little city in Ohio. And I was hoping that it would bring a little bit of light on a dark day for you. So I want to know Kareem, and I want to share his story. So tell me about Kareem. What was he like? Well, let's go way back when he was a little boy. What was he like as a little kid? I know I was a pain in my parents' ass. What was he like?
He definitely was not a pain in the ass. Kareem was a very well behaved child. All five of my kids, very well behaved. I was a stay at home mom, so my kids were with me 24/7. I even volunteered at their schools because, I wanted to be there. If something happened, I needed to be there to protect my kids. So they literally couldn't escape their mom. But he was very well behaved and he was fun, great personality, loved to laugh. So he was always doing something to make you laugh, whether telling a joke or just doing something funny. Very outgoing. So me and my children, we'd go on a lot of hikes. We also went for a lot of walks. I taught my kids to ride bikes and scooters, each one of them, start when they were little. So obviously, once Cream learned to ride a scooter, we would all go for scooter rides, bike rides. Like it would play ball. I taught my kids to play ball, so we'd play ball. He was just very outgoing, always wanted to do something. But I do remember when he was about 3 or 4 years old, um, he started pretending that his army men were Marines because we had seen some Marines in their dress blues at the mall. And he just, for some reason, immediately looked up to them. So even at 3 or 4 years old, he was thinking that's what he's going to be. And of course, me being a mom and already having three other kids that are older than Kareem and then one that was younger, I was thinking, oh, it's just one of those phases little kids go through. But then when Kareem probably got to, I want to say, maybe the first year of middle school, there was a man, nah, he was even younger than that. He was probably like 10. There was a man that lived across the street from us. I don't remember if he was the Marines or what, but he was in Vietnam. And Kareem went over to do interviews about him to find out about like his life and what it was like being in. So I think he was a Marine and served for many years. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Let me turn it down. And so from then on, it went back to always talking about being a Marine, making little cutout. He would make little Marines out of cardboard and make little war scenes. Like he was very creative with it. And then, yeah, when he turned 18, it was his senior year of high school. He was 18. And he came home from school one day and just said, I did it. I signed up for the Marines. I'm going to be a Marine when I graduate. And I was like, what? I mean, I had already known it was coming up to that because he talked a lot about it. I was already giving him rides to and from the recruit center in Corona so he could train with them a couple times a week. So I already knew it was leading up to that. So I wasn't surprised, but at the same time, I kind of was. And yeah, and from then on, he just did his own thing. You know,
Well,
it was weird
okay.
because I was one of those moms that was so terrified of something happening to one of my kids that my kids weren't allowed to go on bike rides alone. I had to be there. Walks, I had to be there. If they wanted to play in the backyard, I had to be out there to watch them play in the backyard. Like they weren't allowed to go on play dates or go to friends' houses because I couldn't watch them over there. So we moved back to Norco when Kareem was in middle school. And he would ask to go to friends. And I was always like, no, you know, but they can come here. He'd ask to go on bike rides. No, but you know, you can ride on our cul-de-sac and I'll sit outside and watch you guys ride. And then one day, I think Kareem was like 16 or 17. He didn't ask. He told me, hey, Mom, me, Steven, and some of our friends are going for a bike ride. And I was like, you know, no, you're not. I can't see you if you leave this street. And he's like, well, we are. You're going to have to trust us. We'll call you every hour. And I was like, okay. So I actually let him go. And he stuck to it. Every hour he called me. They were gone probably 5 hours on a bike ride. And it started getting dark. I started panicking. So he called me because he knows I don't want him riding his bike in the dark. So he called me and said, hey, we're here at such and such place. Come pick us up here. So I went and picked up Kareem, my youngest son, their friends, threw their bikes in the bed of my truck and gave everyone a ride home. So yeah, it wasn't until then that I realized Kareem was going to start doing the things he wanted to do and expect his mommy not to be right there for every step.
That's awesome. My parents weren't lucky enough to raise a Marine, so it takes a special person to join the Corps and do what they do, and those uniforms are sharp.
Yeah.
So
He was very
I was
fortunate.
proud to be in the Navy and do what I did, but man, those uniforms were just so weird. So that's awesome that he joined the Corps. I have a I love the Marines. In fact, I just saw some this past weekend at the air show, and I was kidding them that you know, they're the Department of the Navy, and they reminded me that they're the men's department. So
You know, a lot of people don't know that for years, Kareem did boxing, kickboxing, MMA, and jiu-jitsu. He's actually a national and world champion in jiu-jitsu.
really,
So yeah, Kareem was very disciplined. Like he was one of those, could he kick ass? Heck yeah, he could kick ass. But he was also so respectful and so well disciplined. Like he used to get on me and be like, if we went somewhere and someone mouthed off to me instantly, I was the type of person, because I'm very protective of my kids, so I would immediately mouth off right back and be like, what are you going to do about it? And Kareem would be like, why even give them your time? Just ignore them, you know? So he was one of those people who wanted to diffuse a situation, not create a bigger one. So he had a lot of a lot of respect and self-discipline. It was very impressive and very, very just all around, just a good human being. Like he loved helping people. He would help like our neighbors without even telling us he was helping them. Like what kid is in the Marines? And every weekend, every Friday I picked Kareem up from Pendleton, and every Sunday I took him back, just me and him alone in my truck for a truck ride. You know, we got to talk about everything and anything. It was wonderful. But what young man, his age, comes home on the weekend to spend it with his family, and then disappears for a couple of hours, and then comes back, doesn't tell you he was just down the street helping somebody shovel rocks in their yard. Like,
Hmm.
instead of being home relaxing, he's helping people. So he just had such an amazing heart. He's an amazing human being.
Wow. So, did he play any sports or anything when he was in school
Yeah,
besides the MMA?
when he was younger, he did do football. Weirdly, so for football, baseball, and soccer, Kareem's jersey number was 26 for all three.
Hmm.
And people are like, "What's that mean?" I'm like, "He died on the 26th." So
Hmm.
it was just weird to me. And then his little brother, his jersey number for all the sports he ever played was number 11. And I tell them that's even weirder because 11 Marines lost
Right.
their lives. So
Right.
I'm like, that's just weird. So I do have their jerseys.
Wow. Yeah, I
Yeah.
kept all my son's jerseys for everything he played too. I literally have every jersey, including his high school jersey.
Yeah. Like
Which
I said, Kareem was extremely outgoing. And
That's awesome.
I always tell people he loved life and he literally lived it to the fullest. Like, and he worked out. And even as he got older, because we hiked so much when he was little, he continued hiking. Matter of fact, he had brought home, I think it was 12 Marines one weekend. So many had came home with him that I had to get one of my friends involved. Hey, we need to bring your truck too because there's so many Marines that there's going to be 6 in my truck, and then we need to throw the rest in yours because Kareem wanted us all to go hiking. We hiked the Bridge to Nowhere. I believe that is a 12-mile hike, and it
Hmm.
normally, maybe it's a little longer, and it normally takes people a full entire day to do this hike because there's 2 rivers you have to cross. I believe it was 2, and you have to hang on to the rope because it's pretty deep to get across. And at that time, I was very physically fit. I went to the gym all the time. I went hiking all the time. So I was like, okay, Cream, and it's a few months before he deployed.
Mhm.
So I love hiking with my kids. So I was like, okay, we can do this. So we go to do the hike, and we did the whole entire hike within 4 hours, within
A
4 or 5 hours, because
and it normally took how long?
the whole entire day. So like when people started at
Wow.
8, they normally didn't get done till like 6 p.m.,
Wow.
5 p.m. But it took us, I remember, I'm not sure how many hours to be exact, but it was such a short amount of time that when I would tell people, oh, yeah, we started at this time, we finished at this time, they'd be like, there's no way. There's no way. I'd be like, no, there is a way. Have you ever went hiking with a bunch of Marines? Because let me tell you how that went. They made us run most of it. Like we were running most of
That
it.
sounds like Marines.
Yeah, and I was thinking, gosh, they're trying to kill Cream's old mother, but I got to keep up. So, and then afterwards, Cream was impressed. He's like, I can't believe you actually kept up. I was like, I can't either because I feel it, like I hurt everywhere. I was like, you guys tried to kill me. Like,
That's
but we had so much fun. And then afterwards, we all went out and ate at Subway.
So he joined the Corps. You're in California. So
Yeah.
he joined the Corps and he went to boot camp in California?
Yes.
And where's the Marine boot camp in relation to where you live?
Where I live now. Okay.
Or
Well,
where you lived when he was in boot camp?
when he was in boot camp, I lived in Norco. That's my hometown. I was born and raised there. And it would
Yep.
take me anywhere. It takes most people to get from Norco to Pendleton about, I want to say, an hour and 20 minutes. I would get to Pendleton in about 45 minutes to 50
Okay.
minutes. It depending, because I do fast track. Um, yeah, and Kareem would be constantly texting me the whole time. Are you almost here? Are you almost here? Yes, I'm almost there. Now, when he was in boot camp, he was in San Diego. That was about an hour, I want to say hour and a half away. Um, and we didn't get to go see him in boot camp, obviously,
Right.
but we
Yeah.
got to go there for his graduation from boot
Hmm.
camp.
And
So
so he went to boot camp an hour and a half away from home, and then he got orders to Pendleton, which was an hour away from home. That
yeah,
had to make your heart so full you
It did,
know.
because that meant that I was going to have Kareem home every weekend. I was going to have him
Right.
home every holiday. When they would get leave, like sometimes they'd get an 8-day leave or 12-day leave, whatever, I was going to have Kareem home. So that was amazing because, and it was amazing for Kareem too, because, you know, Marines who are there are normally from another state. They don't get to go home to their families.
Hmm.
They have to stay Marines 24/7. To where Kareem, which can actually mess with your mind, to where Kareem, he got to come home every weekend, and be himself, be with his family, be himself. So he didn't have to be like in that Marine mindset 24/7. He got to come
Right.
home and be himself. So I think that was wonderful for Kareem. I know it was great for me because I hate being away from my kids. So, I mean, me and him would text during the week, or I'd talk to him on the phone. I'd be like, hey, you want me to drive out there right now and see you? Because I will. No, no, that would be embarrassing, you know? And I'd be like, okay, you know, sorry. I'm not a baby. I know you're not. I know
He's
you're
a
not.
Marine.
Yes,
So what was his
exactly.
job in the Marines?
What do you mean? Like he was a rifleman?
A rifleman. Okay. See, like in the Navy, I don't know if it's MOS or I never understood what the other branches did. Me, I was aviation ordnance. So, but I'll have people say, "What was um your MOS or something?" And I'll be like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I can tell you what my rate was." You
Yeah.
know, but in the Marines it might be different and but he was a rifleman. Okay. That's
You know
cool.
what's so funny too is one time I went and I picked him up from base, and he had just graduated SOI, so he's excited. He gets to start coming home for the weekends. And funny thing is, he came home one weekend and I had COVID. So I gave it to Kareem, and he gave it to so many Marines on base, but like everybody was fine. And he still kept coming home on the weekends, even though he had COVID, because I was like, well, I gave it to you anyways. But
Right.
he was so excited I remember his first weekend of getting to come home. And the drive home, he was so excited. He was playing all this different music in my truck and telling me about his week and like all that stuff I miss. I babysat my grandson. His name is Rylan Kareem,
Hmm.
and he lives by Pendleton. So to go there and come home, I take the same roads I took to go take Kareem to Pendleton and pick him up. So I was telling my oldest daughter, who isn't this grandson's mother, does that make sense? I was telling
Hmm.
her, man, every time I go out to your sister's house and I watch Rylan, I cry the whole way home. Like sometimes it comes out in screams because I miss Kareem so much, and driving those roads
Right.
reminds me like of the talks he and I would have, and hearing him laugh over in my passenger seat. I was like, it does a number, but at the same time, it's actually strengthening me. Like I'm getting better at driving that road and not completely freaking out. And now, you know, like when I was coming home 2 nights ago, I mean, I cried a little bit, but I smiled way more than I was crying because the
That's good.
memories are just good. And like I could hear his voice in my head and hear his laugh. Like he was just such a beautiful human being.
That's
I
awesome.
miss those days.
So he joined the Marines at 18.
Yeah.
Okay. And when he went to when they were deployed to Jordan, that was at his first deployment?
Yep. He sent really cool videos home. So Kareem would use his GoPro, and he'd
Hmm.
make cool videos, and he would send them home. Like while he was in Jordan, he sent me video. He sent me and his brother, his brothers, his sisters, and even his dad videos of him riding donkeys in Jordan.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So I have horses. So Kareem has rode my horses. So he felt pretty cool on the donkey because, you know, others had not experienced riding a four-legged creature before it. And to Kareem, it was nothing. He knew what to do. So he thought it was pretty cool doing that. Oh, that's what I was going to tell you. So one of the times that I picked up Kareem, we were driving home, and I said, oh my God. I said, look at my cute little soldier. And he snapped at me. He
No,
said,
that's
I
not
am
he's
not a
not a soldier.
soldier.
He's a
Yeah,
Marine.
that's what he said. And I was like, well, what's the difference? He's like, there's a big difference. He said, I didn't join the Army. I joined the Marines. And he said, I am a Marine. I am not a soldier. And
Yep.
I was like, oh. okay, I'm all, is it really that much of a difference? He said, yes, Marines are Marines, Mom. And then he said, soldiers are Army.
Yep.
And so what's weird is now when people comment on my posts, I'll see them say those 13 soldiers. For some, I can't even stop myself. I correct them right away. It wasn't 13 soldiers. Only one soldier died. 11 Marines died and one
Right.
Navy corpsman. Please get it right. These are not all soldiers. And then I'm
Right.
like, why did I do that? Like, but it's
Because you know that every Marine is thinking the exact same thing.
exactly. We're not soldiers. We're Marines. And I'm like,
I made that mistake once too. Once.
yeah. So he
Um,
did, while he was deployed in Jordan, um, he liked it. He thought it was
yeah.
great. There was some things you know, he missed being home. Like
How long were
one
they
night,
there?
he left in April. He left for his deployment. The very last time I hugged Kareem was April 4th, 2021.
Hmm. So that's when they left for Jordan.
No, they left April 11th.
Okay.
And
There's that
so
11.
then he gets to Jordan, and you know, it's his first deployment. He's having fun. He thinks it's great. You know, he's young. He's experiencing the world. Um, so he would send us, like I said, videos and text. He would also FaceTime me a lot. I'm sure he FaceTimed his siblings and his dad too, but like he'd FaceTime me. I'm his mom, so I'd get the most FaceTimes, and sometimes it wasn't just to talk. Like one time we were on FaceTime for 2 hours, and maybe 30 minutes of those 2 hours was conversation. The rest of it was just having me there, so he had his mom
Right.
on that FaceTime with him. So I could tell like he was missing home a lot, missing his family. He talked about how much he missed us.
Mm-hmm.
And then in August, I think it was August 14th or 15th, he did a FaceTime. He FaceTimed me and he said, hey, is dad with you? And I said, well, no, but I'll go get him. He's here at home. So I went to him, and Kareem showed us that his things were packed, and that he was going to be heading home. So I was excited. He was coming home. I was so excited. And then the next day, I believe it was the next day, Kareem texted us in the family group chat and let us know he was going to Kabul.
And
And
how long were they there?
in Kabul,
Yeah.
I believe they arrived in Kabul. I'm not sure of the exact date because everything's really fuzzy from that
But
first year. It kind of deleted my mind straight from when he left for deployment. I want to say they got there on the 17th or 18th of August
okay.
is what I believe.
And what was his thoughts about, going to Kabul? Was he nervous? Were you nervous?
Um, I had stopped watching the news, so I didn't know what was going on in Kabul.
Right.
Kareem didn't want any of us to worry, so Kareem would downplay everything. Like even in his videos, like I think you've seen one of the videos I posted of him with the little boy and other ones with the little girl.
Mm,
Everything just seems fine. He wanted us to think everything was going smoothly. So I didn't really have too much of a reason to be scared. All I knew is I wanted my son to come home. And like I said, he kept us up to date. But then I did end up getting a text from Kareem a couple days before he was killed. And he said, I hate it here.
hmm.
So I thought to on my original Instagram, I made a post. And I said, what a lot of people don't realize is the kids that are deployed over there are seeing some things right now that must be doing a number on their minds, and they're going to bring that home with them. And I'm realizing now my son probably is not going to be the same person when he comes home that he was when he left, because my son doesn't talk like this. He hates nothing. He hates no one. And he is saying he hates it there. So I'm having a feeling he was seeing things that were very disturbing and hurtful to him. Kareem has, when he was killed, he had only a niece and nephew from my oldest daughter, and he was extremely close to them. So when it came to little kids, Kareem was extremely protective over kids, which would be why, while he was there, he was trying to comfort children, because he knows how scared they can get and stuff like that. So, yeah, he downplayed everything. Um, I wish he wouldn't have. I wish he would have told me more. That way, I don't know. I would say so I can tell him I love him more, but trust me, if you see the text, I was constantly telling Kareem, I love you. And hey, how come I haven't heard from you? It's literally been 22 hours and I haven't heard from you. Like, to the point where he sent a text, Mom, I am working. I cannot text you like all the time, and sometimes I don't have service. Like, and I told him, I know I can't help it. I just get worried, so,
Mm-hmm.
it was pretty funny. And then he did send a text and he said, just stop and think, I was supposed to be home tomorrow, or be home. He sent a text on the 17th, because that text said I was supposed to have arrived home yesterday, which would have been the 16th. And like, that's just hard to read. Thinking,
Right.
and you're asking, was he nervous? Now, I didn't know at the time, but I do have Kareem's phone. And I won't say the whole note that he wrote in his phones, but one day I was up at my boys' resting place visiting with my boys, like I do often, and I was asking for a sign from Kareem. Like, I wanted to know, like, I'd heard stories about him and Riley McCollum being close, and I wanted to know, like, and I had seen a bracelet that Riley McCollum's dad had left up on Kareem's resting place. So I was like, well, how close were you and Riley? Like, I don't know. I thought maybe it'd bring me some comfort or peace or whatever. And all of a sudden, on the way home, I got the urge I told myself, oh, I need to go look at Kareem's cell phone. And even though Kareem has passed away, I won't go through his phone. I feel like I would be invading his privacy. So it's not like I'm going to go through his phone. Something told me just check notes. Not his text messages, not his pictures, none of that, because that's not my business. But check notes. So I thought, well, I'm going to go with this feeling. And I checked notes. And I found a letter Kareem had written in his notes, right before he was getting ready to board to go to Kabul. And he did say that, in it, that it was kind of depressing he was going there. He was scared, because he didn't want to die. Um, and then at the end, he did say there was no place he'd rather be than there with his Marine brothers. They've been through so much together. He basically said he's seen them mad, he's seen them laugh, he's seen them cry, like, and how much he loves his Marine brothers. But it was a pretty decent sized note, and he had Riley McCollum in that note too, because that's his Marine brother. But it was a beautiful note that he had put. But yeah, he was nervous about going to Kabul, but he still went. That's his job, and
Right.
he
He
went
had
and he
no
did
he
his
had no
job.
choice.
Yeah, and it's weird. Like I had told you earlier, Kareem loved helping people, and Kareem actually lost his life helping complete strangers in a foreign country.
Yeah, what I tell people too, when because they don't know what happened that day, I said those people, not just those 13, but those people weren't there for war. They were there to help.
Yeah.
And 13 of our heroes were killed. They weren't firing their weapons. They were there helping people to, try to get to a better life and to leave that place. And
Yes.
they didn't deserve that. So, yeah,
They did it.
he was he was helping. I watched the news and I saw people, handing their babies over the fences and things like that to try to get them to a better life. And people like Kareem and, Max and Soviak and Nicole G, you see these pictures of these angels holding these little children. And
Yep.
you
Comforting
could
them.
tell Kareem and those guys, they cared. They're not, you know, crayon eating, door busting, killing
Window
Marines.
licking.
Yeah, they were there to help. And
Yes.
I mean, I love when the media shows pictures like that because that's why they were there. They weren't there to blow shit up.
No, they were there to
I
help.
don't even know that an American even fired their weapon. So, but I know that they didn't deserve that. So when that happened, um, how did you find out?
Oh, that to this day is the worst day of my life. One of the worst days of my life.
Right.
Losing my second son was the second worst day of my life. Um, that morning, weirdly, I woke up in the morning and I was very upset, crying. I woke up like at 6 something in the morning, and I couldn't stop thinking about Kareem, and I was so worried. But I stopped myself from texting him. Sorry, let me fix
Don't
that.
worry about that.
I stopped myself from texting him because I knew I would send too many texts, and then when he replied, he'd be like, "Dang, mom, I told you I'm working," you know. So I stopped myself from texting him, and I just told myself it's just because I miss him so much. That's why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. So I try to keep
I'll
myself.
bet he loved opening his phone and seeing all those text messages from mom, even though he gave you the business. I'll bet he loved
Of
it.
course he did. He liked knowing that I worried so much about him. He was my baby. He was mama's boy. And yeah, so I thought, well, let me keep myself busy. So I went out. He had a Marine flag, and I thought, well, I'll go put it on my truck. That way, when I drive around, I can get it a little tattered because he's going to be home in about a week. And I want him to think I've had that Marine flag on my truck the whole time, you know, show him my support. So I went out and I put it on my truck. And then I went back in the house, picked up a little bit, and I just could not shake this feeling. And when I say shake a feeling, it wasn't like a feeling like, oh, I miss my son. It was a feeling like my heart felt broken.
Right.
It's like I almost can't describe it. It felt broken, and I couldn't figure out why. And it was broken toward Kareem, and it would just make me start crying. So then I thought, well, let me take my mind off of it. It's now about, I want to say 8:30, and I decided to go on my original Instagram account before Instagram deleted my account. And the first thing I see was there had been an explosion at AbbeyGate. And as soon as I seen it, I recognized the background because the video Kareem had sent with the little girl, you can see that in the background. And I was like, no, no, he's fine. But I immediately sent Kareem a text message in the group chat, the family group chat we had, and then my own personal one to him. And then I take off and I go to my daughter's. My oldest daughter lives about 5 minutes from my house, and I go to her house. And when I got there, she was crying, and because I had already called her, and I was like, "Dude, I have a bad feeling about your brother," and yada yada yada. And I get to her house, and I tell her, "Turn on the news." So she turns on the news, and at first it said, I think like 1 or 3 U.S. service members injured. So I looked at her and I was crying, and I said, "Good, he's alive, but one of those is your brother." I said, "I can feel it. Something has happened. One of those is your brother." Um, Weirdly, when you're a mom, you know, you carry your children in you. There is a bond like no other bond. Moms can feel things about their kids, and I just kept feeling that I had lost Kareem. And I didn't want to believe it, but I could feel it in my heart. And then all of a sudden it changed, and it started saying like 2 dead, 3 dead. And then I looked at my daughter and I told her, "Turn it off. I can't watch it anymore." And then I just sat there crying, and my daughter's crying, but she's trying to calm me down at the same time. Um, and then my mom ends up calling me. She wants me to go to lunch with her. So, because she thinks she's going to make me feel better. So I go to lunch with her and her friend. And while we're sitting there, I couldn't eat. I just started crying, and I kept telling my mom, something's happened to my son. And I was crying really hard. And I told her, "Mom, I can feel it." And she told me he was fine. Like, how could my mom know, you know? So
Right.
she tells me, you know, you've always been one of those really overprotective moms. So you're just assuming the worst. And I kept telling her, then why does my heart feel this way? And she said, because you're worried about him. And I told her, "Mom, this isn't a worried feeling. I feel like I've lost Kareem." And my mom said, you know, "He's fine. Don't worry about it. He'll call you later." So I end up leaving with her, and I go back home, and I convince myself, that if somebody doesn't show up here by 5 p.m., then Kareem's fine. I just got to wait for him to call. Because for some reason, in my head, I convinced myself that they only come to your house, up until 5 p.m. if something's happened. I don't know why I thought that. And around 5 p.m., nobody came, and my youngest son said, "Hey, Mom, can you drop me off at the high school to a football game?" And I see him like acting fine, and I'm thinking, oh, you know what? Kareem must be fine because even his little brother is fine. I'm going to go take him to a football game. So I took him and I dropped him off at the high school to the football game, and I went to a friend's. I try to stay away from home a lot because me and Kareem's father don't get along. And so I went to a friend's, and I got home around 9 p.m. Steve, Kareem's dad, had sent me a text, like I think at 7:30 or something, and I didn't see it. But then he sent me another one at 8:30, and he was like, "You need to come home. I'm not feeling well." Well, that worried me because when Kareem first went to boot camp, Kareem's father's heart went to AFib, and he ended up in the hospital. So I was thinking, "Oh my God, it's his heart." So I get home, I walk through the front door, and I notice there's only a small kitchen light on, which lights up the living room just a little bit, but I notice the hall light upstairs is on, and my youngest son is standing up there. So I go upstairs to him, I go, "Well, where's your dad?" And he said, "I don't know, there's something wrong." And I was like, "Okay, wait here and let me find out what's wrong." So I went downstairs, and as I was going down the stairs, Kareem's dad walked in through the sliding glass door, and he walked into the living room, and he sat down. So I walked in, and I sat on the couch, and I looked over at him. I said, "Are you all right?" And all he said was my name. He just said Shana. And as soon as he said Shana, I just remember this pain like I had never felt, almost like I just got thrown into a dream. My body felt cold. It felt numb. And I just started crying. Apparently I was screaming, but I only thought I was just crying, but I guess it was coming out in very loud screams. And then I remember standing up, and I remember the reason why I was standing up is because I was looking around like for this to be a lie. I don't know if that makes sense, but I was looking for that to be a lie. I was looking for a lie. And then I guess from my screaming and crying, my youngest son came running down the stairs to me, and I grabbed him and I pulled him to my face, and I told him. I asked him to please tell me it wasn't true, that his brother wasn't dead. And that's how my youngest son found out, was me asking him that. And then I seen a tear roll down his cheek. And that like hurt me even worse because Kareem and his little brother were just like this. Like they did everything together. All three of my boys were very close. All my kids are extremely close. I was one of those moms who made sure that her kids had a very close bond. My kids were very close to one another. So it really hurt me seeing my son hurt. I don't remember the rest of the night. Like, I had no clue that both my daughters came. Um, I have no memory from that night. I mean, I'm getting little bits and pieces of that memory back now of that night. So now I can remember walking out back to my horse and my horse coming over to me and me petting her. Just little things like that. And the reason why I went to my horse is because my mare is a buckskin. And one of Kareem's favorite movies growing up and still at 20 years old was the movie Spirit, with the wild Mustang.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple days before he was killed, he had said when he came home, he wanted us to watch that movie together as a family and have, some steak dinner. And so I remember I had went out to her and was brushing her because she looks like Spirit. She's a buckskin. And me thinking of how much, Kareem, how cool Kareem thought my mare was because she looked like the horse Spirit. I even have pictures of him just sitting on her in the backyard. But I do remember now, like I can remember waking up the next morning, or I don't even know if I went to sleep. Somebody told me I didn't even sleep, but so I don't know how it dragged this, but I remember standing up off the couch and thinking, oh, I need to do the dishes, and walking over and start doing the dishes in the kitchen. Now I had fallen asleep. It had to have been because I remember thinking, God, that was a weird dream that I had. It was horrible. So I had to have slept for at least an hour or two. And then I went to go out to my front porch, and I noticed that my youngest daughter's fiance, he was her boyfriend at the time, now he's her husband. So I noticed his truck is there, and I thought, well, why is his truck here? So I went up to my daughter's old bedroom, and I opened the door, and as soon as I opened it, they both sat up, and they looked at me because it's the next day, and I noticed my daughter had swollen eyes. And I went to talk to ask, is it true? Is Kareem dead? But it came out in a raspy whisper because I'd lost my voice from screaming so much and crying. And as soon as I heard my voice, I remember just looking at both them, shutting the door and running downstairs and hopping into the shower with my clothes on and shutting the door and just crying. I just wanted to be where nobody was and just sat in the shower crying. And then obviously it caused concern. So there was banging on the door. People wanted the door open. Nobody wanted me left alone. I didn't realize I was in shock, and apparently shock can be dangerous. And I didn't realize I was actually in shock. So I did get taken to my doctor, and had to see my doctor. And while there, he didn't want me driving or anything. I do remember he's such a wonderful, amazing doctor. He emptied his office, like closed down the office, and told me that I needed someplace where I could be alone. And he left me in a room, and he told me, you go ahead, you can scream and cry all you want in here. And I remember as soon as he walked out, me just losing it. And then I had told him the reason I was there is I said, I've never flown before, and I have to leave for Dover tomorrow. And I've never flown. I don't think I'll be able to do it. So is there anything you can give me? He knows I don't like to take pills. So he was like, he prescribed me an anxiety or a medication I could take that would relax me and possibly allow me to sleep on the flight, because he could see that I hadn't really had any sleep. And I said, okay, thank you. So he gives it to me. And he explains also to me that I'm in shock and how, I'm not going to remember things, but maybe a year from two, the memories might start coming back. Don't let them scare me. Just realize I'm finally getting memories back, or I might never get them back. He also explained to me that because I'm so traumatized, I most likely have PTSD, which he was explaining I was going to start having nightmares and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, I'm not that type of person. Stuff like that doesn't happen to me, because that's how I've always been. So the next day we have to fly to Dover, and we get to the airport and I decide to take the pill because this is my first time flying. And at that time, I was afraid. I can't handle heights, number one, and I can't handle confined places. And I had already told myself, not only are you going to be way up in the sky, but you're in a confined place you can't get out of, and you're going to be up in the sky. So I've already freaked myself out. So I take this pill, and I'm like, oh, within 30 minutes, I was like, oh, this flight's going to be no problem. But then we get on the flight, and it's like that pill immediately wore off. My adrenaline must have kicked in because there was nothing that pill was going to do to help me. And I remember sitting on the couch, and the jet, we were on a private jet, and it starts taking off. And I remember thinking, what the hell is wrong with me? And I wasn't talking to anyone. I'm just sitting on the couch by myself, hanging on. I was like, what's happening to me? Because I got to where I felt like I couldn't breathe. And my body started feeling like my arms were getting stuck. So I guess this is a full-blown panic attack. And then the next thing I know, I'm waking up on the floor of this private jet. And I remember hearing somebody say, no, don't worry, she's fine. She's breathing. She only passed out. And me thinking, as I open my eyes and I'm getting myself off the floor, I was thinking, God, nobody even came to help me, But I was like, okay. And then I get back up on the couch, and I just calm myself down, and I wait for any type of turbulence. I was like, oh, this is it. But I also started relaxing because I was like, well, if I die, at least I'll be with Kareem. I just didn't want my children that were on this flight being hurt. So it was giving me a panic. So we finally make it to Dover, and I believe it was the 28th. And we make it to Dover, and I ended up not sleeping. And my poor oldest daughter, meant she wasn't sleeping either because I made her sit outside with me. And I hadn't ate either since
I'll
finding out
bet.
about Kareem. I hadn't been able to eat. And then it's finally, the sun starts coming up. We get ready because now it's the 29th and we got to go over to, I forgot the name of the place. It was at Dover Air Base. But we went to a place to meet Biden. And we sat in there probably an hour or two waiting on him because, you know, he doesn't care about our time. And he finally made it in, and they had told parents, if you want to talk to him, you can stay, he'll make his rounds. Or they had another room parents can go into. And I had decided that even though I didn't want to see Biden because I was extremely angry I decided out of respect for my son, I would. I wanted to tell Biden about my son, what I feel he had taken away from me, because, you know, I feel like he is responsible for my son's death. His calls were responsible for my son's death, I guess, his decisions.
Right.
So he finally makes his way over to me, and the first thing I say to him, I do remember his wife reaching out to shake my hand, and I just looked at her hand, and then I looked up at her, and then I looked at Biden, and I told him, I don't actually care to talk to you. And before he let me finish, he said, okay, like he was going to turn and walk away. And then I said, but out of respect for my son, I am going to talk to you. And he said, okay. And he turned and he faced me. And I told him that I was never going to get to hug my son again. And just started talking about Kareem. And maybe I'd only got to talk about Kareem maybe 30 seconds before he interrupted me and started talking about his son, Bo. So I did interrupt him, and I did say, what are you doing? This is not about your son. This is about my son. And I said, so now I'm going to talk about my son. And he said, okay. And he stopped what he's doing, and I started talking about Kareem again, saying how he was never going to get to experience having a family, you know, a wife or his own children, talking about his smile, his laugh, how much he loved life. And he interrupted me again and said, I was just trying to tell you, I was telling you about my son, Bo, because I just want to tell you I know how you feel. And I told him, don't tell me you know how I feel, because you don't know how I feel. You have absolutely no idea how I feel. But it upset me enough that I told him, you know what, I'm done with you. I'm done. And I know a lot of people think, oh, you know, that was really bitchy, really rude. You need to understand, I am face to face with the man I feel is responsible for the death of my son. And there's two things he did not do when he was face to face with me. One, thank me for my son's service. Two, tell me he was sorry for my loss. That man did not thank me for my son's service or tell me he was sorry for my loss. He's face to face with me, and he doesn't say either one of those things to me. So that already had me upset. And then the third thing he does is he interrupts me talking about my son to make it about his son. And so I know a lot of people thought, oh, she was a real bitch, you know, talking like that to Biden, the way she got. Put yourself in my shoes. Like, what would you do? Your son was just killed 2-3 days prior, and the president of the United States does not thank you for your son's service or tell you he's sorry for your loss. He doesn't even talk about Kareem at all. He knew nothing about my son. He couldn't even say, yeah, I've seen pictures of your son, beautiful young man. So nothing. So yeah, I was extremely upset. So I tell him I'm done with him, and I turn my back on him. And the reason I turn my back is my children and their father had already been standing there with their backs toward him because they wanted to show disrespect to him. And so I turned my back to show him the same type of disrespect because I felt that's what he deserved. And then something in me said, you're not done talking to him. So he literally got a few feet away, and I don't know why, but I all of a sudden flung around, and I looked at him and I yelled, hey, Biden. And he turned around and he looked at me, and I said, you know, my son's blood is on your hands, right? All 13, their blood is on your hands. And as soon as I said it, he turned his back toward me and waved his hand behind his back like, yeah, right. And he kept going. And I don't know. Some people say I yelled out fucking dick, and that's why they made me go outside. I don't remember yelling out anything foul, but I was extremely mad at that time. I do remember being asked to go outside to the garden area to calm down, and I went outside to the garden area to calm down because I was extremely upset. But it gets worse. And you're probably thinking, how can it get worse? Because you're thinking he's already disrespected you by talking about his son while you were talking about your son and not thanking you for your son's service and not telling you sorry for your loss. No, he took it a step further. So now we get over to the air base, and it's time for our kids to come off the aircraft. They come off as numbers, not by name. My son was number 8. So that really bothered me, because I was like, they deserve to have their names being said. Why are their names not going to be said? Like, nobody explained to me why, nothing like that. It's easier for the numbers, blah, blah. We'll just keep it going. But I'm watching, and as, they're being taken off, every now and then I would see Biden look at his watch. And I thought, what the fuck is he doing? Excuse my language, but that's what I thought. And then
I think we all thought that.
Well, yeah. So I see this and I'm like, well, what is he doing? And I'm feeling disrespected. I feel like now you're just disrespecting my son in his death. And so I watch him do it again. And I think it was on the 3rd or 4th time that I seen him do it that I yelled out, what the fuck does he keep checking his watch for? Is it his fucking nap time? And then my Keiko explained to me I can't be having outbursts like that or I'll have to go sit on the bus. And then I remember telling my Keiko, who was wonderful, so much help, just a wonderful man. I remember telling him, then you need to tell him quit checking his fucking watch, because I was mad. And then he was like, just, calm down, just ignore it. And I was thinking, okay. But then, now my son has come off. My son has been loaded on the van. The other fallen heroes are coming off. And I see him check his watch again. And I'm like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Like, it brought tears to my eyes, because I was just thinking of the face-to-face meeting I had with him and how I felt like my son and myself and my family had been disrespected. And now I'm watching him disrespect all of them as they're being taken off an aircraft. And we're all just going to act like this isn't happening. And so that finishes. We head home after that, the dignified transfer, which wasn't the time. We ended up heading home, and I make a post about it. And because I made a post about that meeting with Biden on my social media, they immediately, my daughter's texting me, sorry, let me move that. They immediately banned both my accounts, my Facebook and my Instagram account. Well, because they banned it, and a couple of my friends realize, hey, they just banned our account. They start posting about it, and it goes viral. It ends up on the news, everything. It goes viral. Facebook and Instagram give me back my accounts and say they did it by accident. They didn't mean to.
Oh,
it
yeah.
Was an accident.
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't. They did it on purpose, because they waited for things to die down. So it took about 8 months for things to start dying down, because, Biden never talked about our fallen 13. He's never said their names. The news wasn't really, putting out there what happened at AbbeyGate or anything. They just kind of helped sweep it under the rug. They wanted it forgotten about. So things died down. So 8 months after after the whole incident, I make a post about, and I even put in this post, these are my own feelings. I had put that I felt Biden's incompetent decisions and careless decisions are why my son lost his life. And I was only speaking for my son, because that's my son. I can only speak for him. And in that post, I also had put about how they have been shadow banning, censoring, and keeping my account restricted. At that time, I had over 11,000 followers, and how they're deleting my followers and stuff like that. So I post about it all. Next thing I know, that account is completely deleted. Instagram. Oh, and I started talking about the DOD, how there was going to be an investigation, and I talked about how I got my son's GoPro back and it had been wiped clean. In this post, I had gotten my son's GoPro back and it had been wiped clean, and I said, what the fuck would they wipe my son's GoPro clean for? What did he have on there that they didn't want seen? Which my son was standing across from the suicide bomber, and he had his GoPro on him. And I also in that post put, it's funny because first they lied to us and tried saying that Kareem didn't have his GoPro on him. We let him know he did because his Marine brothers let us know. Then they tried lying and saying, well, it got broke. And I said, okay, well, we want his broken GoPro back. Then all of a sudden we get the GoPro back and it's not broke at all. Not even a crack.
Right.
I mean, you can tell it went through a little bit, but it worked. So I immediately go on it and I realized they have wiped it clean. Because even the videos that Kareem made on it that he sent to home, they were missing. Those should have been on there. At least those, but they were missing. So I put that all in his post, and next thing I know, my account is gone. They won't even let me rebuttal it, nothing. There's no way in hell I can have the account back. So I never got my account back. So I end up having to make a new one, which upset me because I had a lot of conversation on Instagram, in my Instagram messages with Kareem, and pictures that I couldn't recover. So I was very upset about that, especially not having those conversations between me and Kareem, because sometimes when they didn't get service for texting and FaceTiming out there, they could still get on social media sometimes. And so we could talk on, have a conversation on Instagram.
Right.
So, yeah, they end up doing that. And now the Instagram account I have now, they still delete my followers daily. They go through, they delete about 20 to 50 a day. It sucks when they end up deleting my family, and my family calls me and they're like, hey, why did you make me where I can't follow you on Instagram? I'm like, it's not me, it's Instagram. And they just recently sent me a notification saying that my post goes against community guidelines. If you look, the only thing I've been posting about is my boys, the 3-year mark, the 2-year mark, and my post goes against their communist guideline or community guidelines. So yeah, they're basically keeping my account every 90 days. They send me a new notification to keep me restricted, shadow banned, and censored.
You're not the first person I've heard that's happened to. So I have a couple of questions. When you met the president, did he even say Kareem? Not even Kareem?
No.
So when you say he literally has never said your son's name, he didn't even
literally has
say it to
never
your
said it.
face.
No. I
The
said it though.
consoler in chief.
I said, I'm the mother of Lance Corporal Kareem Nikoui, is what I did say. He heard his name, but he did not say his name. And to this day, he has not said his name.
And when Jen Psaki, I'm sure you heard, she wrote a book and she said that he only looked at his watch once. What do you think about that? What did you think about that?
Well, not being rude, but that's typical of Psaki. She does lie a lot. So,
Right.
I mean, the whole administration does, but her, yeah. So, of course, she's going to lie. She wants to lie too.
Well, she had to change that.
Yeah, I heard that she had to change it.
And what did you think? And I think I know the answer without even asking, but what did you think when he slapped you in the face saying indirectly that not one service member has been killed
I
under
actually
his
have
watch?
a post about that on Instagram. What a lot of people don't realize, they think that I can't speak for the other families. I can only
No, and I'm not asking you to.
So when I heard that, what people don't realize, when I hear things like that, as Kareem's mom, it's not like I'm just hearing it and getting mad. It breaks my heart. I start crying, and I'm just like, dude, really? 13 were killed under you, my son being one of them, and you're gonna say nobody's died under your watch? But then I realized too, not being rude, but Biden doesn't know his asshole from his mouth. So if they were to tell him, hey, nobody's died under you, he's like, yay, he's like a little kid, yay, ice cream, nobody died under me. So that's how I look at him. But yeah, just like, oh God, what is his name? Kirby? He didn't see the chaos. He just didn't see the chaos, not from his perch. He didn't see no chaos. I have a video of that posted. Like, how are you going to say that? Just stuff like that destroys me. It hurts me for the ones who were there, that got to come home. Like, I'm happy they made it home to their families, but people have no idea what they brought home mentally. They brought home so much mentally, and they've got to live through this every day. Their families have to live through every day. Their families could have been the ones getting the calls, but instead, or getting the knock on the door, but instead they got the calls, hey, your child is wounded, or hey, your child is okay. Thank God for them, but that doesn't mean that those families didn't automatically start hurting for us. Like,
Sure.
they immediately started hurting for us because they knew we got that knock on the door, and they were so thankful they didn't. I mean, people just don't understand what comes along with this. Just like, you know, everybody's like, hey, at least AbbeyGate's still being talked about. Okay, that's another whole subject. You don't see me. You can say that you have not seen me doing anything political using my son's name. You did not see me go to the hearings. I was having health issues, but I also look at it as I'm a strong believer in God. I also look at it as God keeping me out of that situation, because at that time I didn't realize that's Congress using the Gold Star families, giving them hope while using them because there's a political agenda right around the corner. So I'm glad I wasn't at those hearings. Did the hearings bring AbbeyGate back to light? Of course. But still, we didn't get accountability. Just like the publicity stunt that was done at State of the Union, using my son's name. I was very upset by that. It hurt my heart to see my son being used that way. I knew it was a publicity stunt because before I was outed away from the group, it was talked about in a Zoom meeting. There was an attorney general in there. He had said, you guys got to do publicity stunts. If you do publicity stunts, then you can ask for donations. You'll get money donations from people. The money you guys get, you'll be rewarded nicely. You'll be able to pay for your own flights to this and that. And I'm thinking, money ain't bringing back my son. And then he talked about how you have to make sure you're at Trump rallies. His words were, sometimes you got to be used so you can use back. So I automatically say I don't want my son being used as a political agenda. That is not what my son died for. Doesn't matter who any of us vote for. Do not use my son as a political agenda. So they all take it that I'm hostile. Their words, an asshole. So they have nothing to do with me. I'm out of there. I'm gone, which I'm fine with. I don't want to be a part of something associated like that. I want my son to be proud, not disappointed. So seeing how, and keep in mind, I support Trump. I vote Trump. But seeing how my son is being used right now as a political agenda has disgusted me. And they're trying to say, well, it's not a political agenda. Well, if it wasn't a political agenda, Trump wouldn't have these, each one of them recorded a speech, made a video speech talking against Kamala and using their child's name. And now Trump has that on his Instagram, each video. That is a political agenda. You're using my son's name and Kamala Harris's name in the same video. You are using my son as a political agenda. And I hate that. It bothers me because my son did not die to be used that way. Show my son some respect. Show him some honor. I don't want my son being remembered as the one who was used to support Trump, endorse Trump. I don't want my son being remembered as the one who was used to endorse Trump. That's not what he should be remembered for. He should be remembered for the kind human being he was, the fair person he was, because he was very fair. His bravery, the way he stayed brave and strong and caring when he was in a foreign country, helping strangers get to safety and freedom. I want him remembered for that. I don't want him being remembered because he was used as a political agenda. That is disgusting to me. I don't care what the other families do, but I had made it very clear that I, Kareem's birth mother, the one who carried him in my stomach, who breastfed him, who raised him, who did everything for him, did not want my son being used in such a way. And for them all to disregard what I had to say because one of the other parents of Kareem said, hey, I'll freaking do it. I need attention. I want attention. Just disgusts me. You should have taken into heart how me as the mother is going to feel. And nobody did. Nobody. So it has caused me, even though I'm going to vote for Trump, I have lost a little respect in that area because you used my kid in a way I did not want my child used. That is my son. I did not want him used like that. I don't want him being remembered for that.
So when when President Trump went to Arlington recently, did that bother you that he was invited, or what did you think of that? Just out of curiosity.
You know, I don't think bad against it. I mean, I'm conflicted in that area. Like part of me is like when I want to defend it, but at the same time, that's not something I want. I wouldn't be like, hey, I got an idea. Let's have a photo op and show that I showed up for the fallen 13. Yeah, you showed up right now because we got an election right around the corner. Where were you 3 years ago? Where were you 2 years ago? Because you weren't there visiting then, you know. So, but Biden has never made it. So my whole thing is, I'm like, why are you going to bitch about Trump being there? I didn't see Biden or Kamala showing up. Like, so I'm conflicted in that area. But at the same time, I'm like, why did you wait and go now? You know, why didn't you go 2 years ago? Why didn't you're only visiting the ones that are at Arlington? You're not going to take time to go visit the ones that are not buried there? Like, make it fair. If you're going to go visit them, go visit the rest. Like, come on now. You're in California enough to go visit. There's 3 here buried in California. My son, Marola, and Hunter. You going to go to their grave sites?
Uh-oh. Hopefully I can get Shana back. I don't know what happened. I'm sure she'll try to get back on here. So as you can hear, this is very compelling and very honest. And I'm hoping she can get back on here. Let me send a message. This is the first time this has happened. Oh, there she is.
Froze. I just sat there waiting because, you know, I'm like, it'll eventually come unfroze.
Hey, I'm glad we got it fixed.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's how I feel about that. I don't feel like he did anything wrong by going. I think, like I said before, like at least he showed up. I don't see Biden or Kamala doing it. They won't even say that, like, they won't even say our kids' names. Now, honestly, I don't want Biden or Kamala saying my son's name now. I don't. My son's name is beautiful and too good to come out of their lying, corrupt mouths. I don't want my son's name coming out of their mouths now. They had the first year to say their names and give beautiful speeches about them the way they did George Floyd for 2 years, but they didn't. They took George Floyd, they made out like he was a hero. Like he was a freaking hero. But 13 real heroes, they wanted them forgotten. And I tell people, you know, when you work that hard to want them forgotten and that whole situation forgotten, it's because you're guilty. And you know you are. That's why you want it forgotten.
So let me ask you. Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
If he truly had wanted to make things at least sort of right, he would have had compassion for me. When he seen me, he would have been like, hey, you know, who is your son? And I would have told my son's name, and he would have said his name to me, Lance Corporal Kareem Nikoui. What a lovely name. Then he would have talked about my son. He would have told me things about my son. He would have looked up my son before he even got there so he could tell me about my son. And then he would have thanked me for my son's service. And then he would have told me he was sorry for my loss. That could have made me react in a completely different way. But instead, because of the way he did things, it created so much anger and rage in me that here I am grieving my son, a pain I've never felt before in my whole entire life. I was also living in a really horrible, bad situation. So on top of all of it, then him, I lashed out. Like I had a really, really hard time, especially that first year. I was just not myself. Everything could set me off and make me lash out. Not like in a crying, I'm so hurt way, like in a way of, I'm going to beat your ass, because I found it felt better to be keep myself mad. I don't know if that makes sense, than to sit there and hurt. I could handle being pissed off because at least it would kind of mask that pain. But if I wasn't pissed off, it would allow that pain, and that pain was indescribable. And literally it felt like it was more than I could take. And then approaching that 1 year mark, we're like 2.5 weeks away from the 1 year mark of Kareem's death, and I lose my oldest son. So, and he was so devastated over losing his brother. And it just, I can honestly say I did not think I was going to stick around much longer.
So yeah, that's what I was gonna get into. So obviously it wasn't tragic enough losing Kareem, and the year that it must have been. Your oldest son, um, I mean, this is probably what most people will be shocked probably most about when they hear this, if they don't already know it. So your oldest son was very close with Kareem, and like you and the other kids, you guys were all dealing with what happened your own way. And then your oldest son, was his name was
Dakota.
Dakota, right? Um, and what happened with Dakota?
He took his own life.
So August 26th, um, because of August 26th, you didn't lose one child, but you lost two.
Yes.
I am so unbelievably sorry for you.
Yeah, I had I've had people in the past ask me, like, how did you not see the signs? And I tell them, I grieve my boys in different ways because one was murdered and one committed suicide. I hurt equally the same for both of them, but I grieve them in different ways. And it's very hard on me. It's very confusing because of the way my emotions ram together, because there's two and they die different ways. I mean, I can't even really describe what I'm trying to say, um, other than it's been really confusing and hard. But the way I didn't see what Dakota was going to do is I was grieving Kareem. And I was so distraught and traumatized over losing Kareem that I did not see the signs about my oldest son. Do I see them now? Oh, yeah. There was lots of signs. Lots. I didn't see them then. And I live with that every day. I feel guilty every day. Um, when you have a kid that commits suicide, you carry a guilt with you. I mean, I even feel guilty about Kareem because I feel like, well, I didn't protect him. But I also know there was nothing I could have done to protect Kareem. He's in another country. To where my son Dakota, he's by my side every day. Every day. There could have been something maybe I could have done. But then weirdly, one of the ways that I realized now there was nothing I could do is when I decided I was going to take my own life. Did I put out signs? Not on purpose. Not on purpose. But if I would have succeeded, if I would have actually went through with it, my children would have been able to look back and say, oh shit, here were the signs. Mom sent us all really meaningful text messages telling us how much we mean to her and how much she loves us. Mom quit coming around, or mom started coming around wanting to spend time with each and every one of us and laughed more than usual, making herself look really happy. There were signs. I didn't even realize I was putting off these signs. But after I was getting ready to and decided not to, it took about a month, and even I seen the signs. I was like, holy shit, I put off signs. I didn't even know I was putting off those signs, but I did. But weirdly, when I decided that I was going to in my life, it's because the pain of losing my boys was, you have no idea. It is literally unbearable, and it's exhausting because, you always want to be okay for everyone. So I stay exhausted, like, not just mentally, but physically. It somehow physically exhausts me too, and emotionally. And I just was so tired of feeling that way. And I looked at it as like, this is for the rest of my life. I'm going to feel this way for the rest of my life. I'm never going to enjoy life again, or it's just not going to have the same meaning because I have two parts of me missing, and those are my boys. So I went in the garage to hang myself. which is also how my oldest son took his own life. And I decided that would be the best way to do it because there would be no mess, and my kids would be able to have an open casket funeral for me, because I wouldn't be all messed up and they wouldn't be traumatized by seeing me. Um, and as I was getting ready to do it, I weirdly heard a voice, and it sounded like the voice was in my ear, and it sounded like my oldest son, Dakota, the one who had taken his life, and it said, "You don't actually want to die, you just want the pain to end." And it stopped me dead in my tracks, and I thought about it for a second, and I jumped down, and I just sat there crying, and I was like, this is true. I don't want to die. I do just want the pain to end. I have so much to live for. I have my other kids. I have my beautiful grandchildren. Like, and I just kept talking to myself, and I was still scared of myself at that time. So I immediately call and find a therapist because I'm like, I need to get some help. And I explained to them, first thing they said, "Are you suicidal right now?" And I said no, because I didn't want to be locked up somewhere. So I didn't want to tell them what I had just was going to do. So instead I told them, I'm just scared of myself. I'm having thoughts and I don't want to have these thoughts. So yeah, I ended up getting myself some help. It doesn't cure the pain. The pain's always going to be here, but I don't want to die anymore.
Right.
I have so many reasons to be here and live, and I have the most amazing grandkids. I have, gosh, how many do I have now? I have 4 and plus 2 more on the way,
Mm,
so I'm excited about that. And then I still have my other kids that are here, and they don't need to be put through anymore. They've already lost their brothers. They don't need to lose their mom. So
right.
it's been hard, but I'm glad I heard that voice. And it's so funny. It's like a few days later, I was like, I must actually be crazy because it sounded like somebody talked in my ear, and I was like, does that mean I'm crazy? Like, what's going on?
No, it doesn't. So how are you? How are you now? How are your daughters?
My daughters and even my son, they're living their lives. They know life doesn't stop. My oldest daughter, bless her little heart, she's the oldest. She's, in her mid-30s. She was very motherly to her siblings. She thought she was second mama. So I've watched her grieve weirdly because her and Dakota were closer in age. So that was a brother-sister relationship. But with Kareem and her youngest brother, Steven, she had a motherly relationship with him. So I've had to watch her actually grieve Kareem like a mother grieves, and it's really hurt my heart, like seeing her grieve like that. Seeing all of my kids sad, when you're a mom, you want to take your kids' pains away. Like when they were babies and toddlers, I'd kiss a boo-boo and be like, there, it's all better. And they'd be like, yes, it is. They would think it
Mhm.
was all better, to where now they have a pain I can't kiss away from them. I can't talk it away. I can't joke it away. It's just there. But they're doing good. Like, my youngest daughter, she still goes to her job and takes care of her baby, and she misses her brother, but she knows she misses both of her brothers, but she knows that her life goes on. It can't stop. And my oldest daughter is back working, after we lost Kareem, she quit working and then lost Dakota. So just going back to work was not in the cards for her. I was the babysitter, so she knew she couldn't go back to work even if she wanted to, because I wasn't in the right mind to watch the kids.
Right.
So now I am. So now I'm back to babysitting kids, and they're back to work. So that shows me we're never going to fully heal, but at least we'll push through it and continue with our lives, like my boys would want. Kareem and Dakota would want that. They honestly, bless. Okay, so Kareem, like I said, he was very loving, very caring, but he didn't like to see people sad. Neither one of my boys liked to see people sad. My son Dakota would handle it a little differently. He'd be like, oh, come here. There's no reason for you to be sad. Try to cheer you up. Kareem would flat out say, stop being a pussy. And that was Kareem for you. And you'd be like, but I'm sad about this. And he'd be like, yeah, but you're alive and life goes on. So there's no reason to be crying about it because crying isn't going to fix it. And I'd be like, gosh, damn it, he's fucking right. Like, so he was funny. But I
That's
mean, if
good.
he knew you were really, really sad, he would try to comfort you and then make little jokes to make you laugh. But if he knew it wasn't something serious, yeah, he wanted you to get over it right then and there.
And for people that don't know this or about Kareem, he was only 20.
Yeah, barely 20.
5 of the 13 were only 20 years old.
Yeah.
I have a 21-year-old daughter and a 19-year-old son. I mean, they were babies. One of the things that I told when I spoke at the community day of mourning was I told the people that, to honor the best way to honor these heroes is to live our best lives, and we need to be worth dying for.
Yeah.
And it's true. And when so the last podcast that I did, the last podcast conversation, I had a conversation with Leroy Petrie, and Leroy Petrie is a Medal of Honor recipient. And I was listening to it while I was working in my shop. I like to listen to these because I actually, when I listen to it, it's like, oh, did I miss that? Even though I'm having this conversation, I'll learn more about it after the fact. And I was listening to Leroy Petrie, and he said that comment: we need to be worth dying for, because he lost friends in the war, and so I was like, huh. So I added that to what I was going to say, and I wanted to let everybody know that that Kareem never got a chance to do any of this stuff. This go to college, get married, have a baby. And for those of us that can, we need to live our best lives, and we need to be worth it, because Kareem sacrificed those things for us to do that stuff. And
You
people need
know,
to put their petty bullshit aside and live their best lives.
you know, in April, was it April? Yeah, April of 2024, 5 men from Central Command headquarters came to my house, to let me know they had completed the investigation, just to show you the extent they go to cover all of this up, and the way they lie to the parents. And, honesty is always the best medicine, no matter what. You just be honest. It helps bring some type of closure. And of course, we're not going to get that honesty because they sat here in my house, and repeatedly told me there was no gunfire. There was no gunfight, no nothing. They went as far to show me a video of drones. See, there's no gunfire. This is 5 minutes after the attack. Like, you name it, they were covering it. And their tracks. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And I was like, but I know Marines that were there. And they come around me. And there was gunfire because one of the Marines that comes around me was shot. So they go on to explain how the doctors don't know the difference between ball bearing and a gunshot wound. And then took it a step further to say, well, they were just calling out gunshot wound, even if it was ball bearing, because that way doctors knew to just work on it right away. They had an excuse for everything. It was beautiful. The gunfire that they heard was down by the Chevron. It was nowhere near AbbeyGate. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Since you guys are being so honest. Why did you guys wipe my son's GoPro clean? And they said, okay, we're going to admit your son's GoPro was wiped clean. I said, weird, because the first time you guys visited us, like almost a year after, you said my son's GoPro hadn't been touched. And I said it was wiped clean because videos are missing off of it.
What about
And
a
now
cell
you guys,
phone?
yeah, and the cell phone. And now you're admitting you wiped my son's GoPro clean. And they said, yeah, because he might have had things on there like where their weapons were at the time that they didn't want known. But it was mostly because of boys' locker room talk. And I said, excuse me. I'm extremely open with my children, and we are very close. I know when my kids have had sex. I got kind of rude, and I said, I know when my sons have had their dicks sucked. Like, I was just trying to make a point. Like, you didn't have the right to take my son's videos from his GoPro. You had no right to wipe them clean. And I even told him, I said, the reason my son was making all the videos that he had made is because he wanted to share them with his family when he got home. And now you've taken those videos and you've taken that away. Now we'll never get to see what my son got to experience over there. And then I said, and I happen to know my son was across from the suicide bomber. And he most likely got on his GoPro what happened then and what happened the following moments after, and you guys wiped it clean so you guys could fabricate your own lies and stories and blah, blah, blah. No, ma'am, there was no gunfire, blah, blah, blah. They were very adamant. The next freaking day, okay, so now it gets posted out for the public to know that now the guys from Central Command headquarters have made their rounds to all the parents and fed us all the same bullshit and lies. And so now it goes out to the public so they can know. Well, apparently, one Marine that did not turn over his GoPro like they were asked to, he kept his hidden. I think he was so upset hearing them repeatedly say there was no gunfire that he releases his video. And what is on that video? I'm sure you've seen it, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is on that video?
Gunfire.
The explosion at AbbeyGate, and immediately right after that explosion, gunfight. Right there at AbbeyGate. At AbbeyGate. And weirdly, one of the Marines that was there, he used to stay at my house with Kareem on the weekends sometimes before they deployed, while they were at Pendleton, and because he would bring home a lot of the Marines. And then while they were at AbbeyGate, he was standing behind my son. And he ends up surviving. He got hit a couple times, but he ends up surviving. He was standing behind my son. And when I asked him about gunfire, he said, I never heard or see any. I didn't fire my weapon. I didn't hear any gunfire. So when he seen that video, because I told him, you guys were all in shock. So some of you might not remember. I said, just like me finding out the news about Kareem, my slate got wiped clean. So the same thing could have happened to you. And he would be like, well, I'm not sure. So when he seen that video, he was kind of shocked. He's like, fuck, but it also starts bringing back memories. So a lot of the guys who didn't remember and weren't real sure, they weren't sure if they weren't sure anymore because they were told there was no gunfire and it was all in their head. So, and now they see the video and they're like, I fucking knew it. I knew it was there, so it's been rough for everyone. Like, not just, obviously it's going to be harder on us parents because we did lose our children. Right. But it is hard for the ones that were there. They lost their brothers and sisters and they came home. Nobody understands what survivor's guilt is.
I can't imagine the PTSD that they
exactly.
have to go through and all that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, what about the sniper that didn't get authorization to take the guy out? Was there truth to that? Because they're saying that's not true.
No, everything he said is true.
That's what I figured.
He has no reason to lie. What is he going to gain from lying? I mean, do people not realize this? He was there when his brothers and sisters were killed. He almost lost his life himself. He lost an arm and a leg. What is he going to get out of lying? Why would he lie?
Right,
but
exactly.
The DOD and all of them, they're going to lie. Why? Because they don't want to be held accountable. They want to protect themselves. So they're going to keep lying. Just like, what was his name? What is his name? He said, I can't think of his name right now, but he said when he was asked if he had any regrets about the Afghanistan withdrawal, he said he had no regrets. And then they said 13 U.S. service members lost their lives and you don't have any regrets. And he said, I have no regrets. And he also said,
was that General Milley?
No, not Milley. Is it Floyd Austin?
Lloyd Austin. Lloyd Austin. Yeah.
Excuse me. It was him. And then, I tried to point out to people, I've had a lot of people talk crap to me. Well, they were Marines. They were just killers anyways. You want people to feel bad for your son, but he was over there killing people. I'm like,
who are these people you're talking to? They're idiots.
These are people that a lot of people think I get a lot of nice messages. I get a lot of horrible messages from people.
That's horrible.
That's why I quit reading message requests, and I kind of just stay out of my mail. I've been staying off of social media. Maybe every now and then I'll post in my story. Except for today, I made a post because I was shocked to look in on my finches and see that they had 2 babies. I'm like, what? So I made a post about that. But other than that, I've been staying off social media. But I have it pinned in my Instagram profile because I was upset. Biden has never, ever said the names of our fallen 13. But he did, and I felt so disrespected by this that I asked Congressman Calvert to send a letter to the White House, and it was right after my son, Dakota, had passed away. And I asked him to send a letter to the White House telling Biden to meet me again face-to-face. I felt he owed it to my sons. And the reason for that was I wanted him to thank me for my son's service and tell me sorry for my loss. Because, like I said, I'm carrying more rage. But, excuse me, I have it pinned in my Instagram wall of Biden referring, these were his words. He says something, he said, of the women and men blown up. He referred to our kids as blown up. He won't say their names, but he refers to them as blown up. First off, I had people come to me and be like, so how did you bury your son? Were you able to have an open casket? Well, yeah, why? Well, because he was blown up. Oh, you thought my son was blown to pieces? No. My son was completely intact from head to toe. He was completely intact. Did he have some holes in him? Yes, he did. He bled out. Obviously, his jugular had been severed. So, that's, but, when they were here talking to me, I said, you guys told me that my son died instantly. And I wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe that he died instantly. I'm sure he died pretty quickly, but I said, I know he was alive when he went off that wall because he tried to catch his fall and he broke his arm in the process. And they said, well, yeah, but within seconds or even minutes, he would have been dead because he was bleeding out. And sorry, I'm starting to have anxiety. That's why I'm starting to cough. Sorry. And that would be why my dog is trying to circle me. He wants me to calm down.
They can sense that stuff.
Yes. Okay.
So I did a podcast with a conversation with Cheryl.
Sit down.
And she said that she hasn't been able to get into Dylan's cell phone. And you're able to get in to Kareem's.
Because like I said, me and my children are very close.
Right. So you had his password?
Yes.
And they didn't wipe his cell phone of whatever was
things missing from his cell phone. There are several text message conversations that are missing. And I knew to look for those text messages because of some of the other Marines that were there that said, hey, we texted about this, this, and this. And when I went to go look for those texts, they are gone. I didn't want to read his text messages. It's not like I read. I just looked for the names. And so, yes, they're missing.
It's so
much is missing. Yeah.
Whatever was on that GoPro, that was
pictures,
his
everything.
Personal property. That wasn't the government's property. That was his property. It's so disappointing.
Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but somebody told me that I don't know how GoPros work, but they said to be able to get GoPro footage to the phone so he could send it to us, it goes into a cloud and goes through his computer since he had everything hooked up to his computer at
Probably.
home. I have his computer.
Well, I would think that that's how it would have to be done, but I'm not I have a GoPro that I haven't used in years, but I know that that's gotta be right.
So them wiping his GoPro clean in his phone, it wouldn't have any effect on his computer, right?
I don't know. Have you reached out to whoever manufactures GoPro or some tech nerd that might know
The
this,
only
because
reason why I
that's
haven't is
somebody I am
because
not.
my thing is if he has something on there, I just don't want like. I mean, I have the password to get onto his computer. I don't have the what is that square? The monitor. I just have the actual computer thingy.
Right.
So I would buy a monitor. I could hook it up to the monitor. I'm just at the same time, I'm kind of like, when they wiped that GoPro clean, does it wipe the cloud clean? Which I need to find out how that stuff works, because if so, I have his computer.
Yeah. I'm sure some tech nerd can figure all that stuff out. Now, I'm also certain that our government probably has some really smart nerds working for them too. And if they don't want you to see what Kareem had on his GoPro or computer, if they don't want you to see it, they'll
Yeah,
make sure you can't. And it's so disappointing, you know,
it's sick.
even if I would think the very least they would do is say, okay, you have to sign this NDA saying you're not going to release this, but
They're
here's
gonna
your
do it
son's
now.
footage.
They thought one of the ways of covering up that, or to make it better, that they deleted. They said, "Well, we've learned our lesson from this, and so now because of you Gold Star parents, we've decided instead of wiping GoPros clean, we will now, let you decide what you want kept on there, and we can delete the rest." And I'm like thinking, what good does that do me? You already deleted
Right.
everything of my sons. Like, it's I wish there was a way to sue him. I'd sue the shit out of him. Not even because I want the money, just to
Right.
fuck with their life.
Accountability.
Yeah, the way my life has been messed up.
It
The way you
seems
took my son's life away.
right. The only person that's been held accountable in this whole thing is a guy, a Marine that spoke up, that didn't have
Yes, true.
anything to do with it. And he's the only person that's been held accountable. That's
Doesn't
disappointing.
that show you? Like, he
What's his
actually
name?
spoke up, and
Stu
Stu Scheller,
Schellenberger?
yeah,
Scheller.
Scheller. You stop and think. He spoke up with the truth, and they
Mm-hmm.
immediately went after him to silence him. Immediately. Like,
Right.
it's like with me, anytime, like I said, if you go look, I've been posting about my boys, and I put truth with it. I'm not putting any lies. I have no reason to lie. What am I going to gain
Sure.
from lying? And now I'm being censored, restricted, shadow banned. Like I said, they do this every 90 days and give me a 90-day restriction and all that other stuff. It's like I'm not allowed to not be restricted, because I speak out. And these are my feelings. These are my boys. I should be able
Right.
to talk about my boys. But
Exactly.
no, I'm not allowed to. And they, like I said, they delete my followers. Like, if I got 50 followers in one day, by the end of the night, they have deleted the 50 that I just got.
Hmm.
And then I'll go sometimes in a message request and, oh, I'm sorry that I followed you. I didn't know that was a problem. And then I explain from following me. Instagram does that. It's not me.
Wow. I
So I
wonder
don't
if
want.
I wonder if I'm still following you.
If you are, you won't be for long. They make their rounds. Like, if you go daily and check my numbers on
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, you'll see my numbers climb up and drop down, climb up and drop down all day long, up down, every single day.
Hmm. Well, I'm still following, and you have 5867 followers.
Oh, they've dropped down today, because earlier it was 90. The last part was 90. So yeah,
And you're following 1288.
yes.
Okay.
Wait, I was following more than that, but also when they delete people from following me, they delete me from following those people too. So
Wow. That's so
yeah, which is
disappointing
scary.
that that's our government.
Yeah. And
That's
what
so
is
insane.
scary about that? As I was trying to tell people, like, the government is supposed to work for us. It seems like now everybody's working for the government. It's scary times right now. Like, I'm afraid. I'm so scared for the future of my grandchildren. Like, you have
Mm-hmm.
no idea how terrified I am for the future of my grandchildren. Like, this country is not what it was when I was growing up. Just
I don't
absolutely
recognize it.
no.
You know,
And
I
the
say all the
left,
time, it's not what I serve for.
yeah, and I want to say, this administration, this government will do whatever whatever they have to do and cheat in whatever way they need to cheat to make sure they install who they want, who's going to continue doing what they want. It's not about winning anymore. And I've tried to explain that to
Right.
people. This whole country could go vote for Trump. And not saying, oh, Trump's the best person in the world. But you know what? He was a good president. That strong
Mm,
leader, and he was doing our country right. Life was easier under Trump. Um,
right.
but the Biden administration, it wasn't about we the people, and it wasn't about this country. It was about what they could get. It wasn't about what they could do for us. Everything has been about what they could get,
Right.
and selling us out to other countries. And just seeing the way that they cheat, the way they try to silence the ones speaking out, that is the key. That is the number one thing people should watch. They try to silence the ones who speak out. You only try to silence the truth when you feel like it's going to hurt your agenda, and that's what they're doing. But yeah, like even Kamala, she can't even do debates. I mean, like you're going to install that one, really? Like
Right.
no. So their whole thing is like I tell people, still get out there and vote. But in communist countries, you don't have a say so. They install who's going to do what they going to continue doing what they want done. They've already put our country on the path they want it on, and it is a downward spiral. And they know if Trump gets in there, he's going to take it off that spiral and start. And they're not going to allow it. So people need
Well,
to be scared.
I've been saying all along too, with all these illegals they're letting in, if they thought for 1 second that they were going to vote Republican, those borders would have been closed.
You know
Nothing would have got
exactly.
through.
But surprise to them, like I've run into quite a few illegals that are here illegally. They're voting. They said if they were allowed to vote, they would vote for Trump, not Kamala.
Hmm.
They just came here for, to earn money to send back to their families is what they're here for. But they think that the Biden administration is a joke. Now, there's some that are going to be living here on welfare. But my whole thing is they left the borders wide open for a reason. We need to be able to cheat an election. We
Yep.
can't do it the way we did it the last election because people will, realize it. So now we're going to have to use these illegals. Now, Kamala's already talking about my first day in office. I'm going to close the border. She wants to build a wall and get it closed. Okay. You've been here for almost 4 years? You never did that.
3.5
Why are you
years.
talking about doing
Yep.
it now? But my thing is, because you guys got what you needed. You got enough illegals here to cheat an election. But people need to stop thinking, what are they going to do with those illegals after this election? They don't want them here either. Are they going to start disappearing like those hundreds of thousands of children who came here illegally? Because look how many children are missing now that came here illegally.
Yep.
Are the people they've let here, are they going to start disappearing too? Because we can't afford to support them. Taxpayers are already paying too much in taxes for everything else. We cannot afford to support these illegals. So it's not like they plan on keeping them here. What are they going to do with them?
Well,
Like,
that state you live in, they want to give them what? Give them an opportunity to
buy a home.
150,000 to buy a house.
Yeah. You know what?
One city in California it has an illegal as a sheriff or something.
Yeah, they're doing shit like that. I mean, it's disgusting.
That's California.
Yeah, and I live here. I live in Southern California. But like I tell
It's
people,
it's probably the most beautiful state in the country, and it's like the
with
armpit.
the amazing weather, we have everything around us, and it's being destroyed by a bunch of idiots. But yeah, it's kind of see, we get
when I joined the Navy and I got a chance to pick my orders wherever I wanted to go. I'm a kid from Cleveland, Ohio. I said, I want to go to California. That's California. That's where I want to go. And I went there and I served in California and I loved living in California. I haven't been back since I haven't been back since I got out of the military. Haven't been back.
Yeah, California is nice. Like it's nice here. It was. I mean, it depends where you live. It depends also where you live because now so many beautiful that were once beautiful little cities and towns, they're now just run down. Like you can tell it's become a Democrat state. You can tell that it is. And I was trying to explain to somebody, back when JFK, back in the day, like when he was president, those were a different type of Democrats.
Oh, yeah.
They were good. They were different. That was, to me, that was the last era of good Democrats because from then on it's gone downhill. So I'm not against, anyone who votes Democrat, but look what you're voting for. Like, do your research, pay attention. Don't go off with that cackling hyena gets up there and says that bitch just talks in circles. She would not be good for our country. Oh my gosh, she's probably only good for blowjobs, but she would not be good for our country. Too many people that I've talked to that say the reason they won't vote for Trump is because they don't like the way he talks. And I try to explain to them, this is not a personality contest. Our country is at stake. The lives of all of us is at stake. Do not go by the way he talks. Yes, he talks arrogant. Sometimes I even think he's cringe when he speaks. But the man gets shit done. He gets shit done. If he says he's going to do something, he does it. And other countries are afraid of him because he's a strong leader. You got to look at somebody who's strong to lead your country. Ignore how they speak, because Biden couldn't even finish a sentence, Ignore how he speaks and do your research. See who's going to be best for our country. That's all I'm asking, because we need a future for the kids, for my grandkids.
Yeah.
And I'm just scared about everything that's going on.
Yep. I had a relative ask. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I do hope if they manage to cheat this next election, I hope every person that truly loves this country and thinks she is worth fighting for, who thinks my son losing his life for this country is worth fighting for. I hope we all rise up together and say, fuck it, let's take our country back and do whatever we have to do to make that happen. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it involves red color. If we got to do that, then let's do it.
It's not going to be good. We're this close to World War III right now, and these people that vote with their emotions or whatever, they drive me crazy. I had a relative just the other day say, "What did Trump ever do for you?" And I said, I don't need the president to do anything for me. They need to keep our country safe and stay the hell out of our lives. That's the job of the government. I don't need the president to do anything for me. And he's like, well, what did Trump ever do for you? I'm like, well, he bought me lunch at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, but I don't need the president to do anything for me. You don't understand. And he's like, well, one person can't fix, all the problems in the world. And I'm like, one person kind of created all of the stuff. So
that's how I feel.
and I actually had to block this guy on my Facebook because he was such an idiot, and I'm related to the guy. So, but I blocked him. I learned a long time ago, blood doesn't make you family. It makes you related. So
exactly.
Kareem was with his brothers and sisters. They were every bit of his brothers and sisters as his blood brothers and sisters, but blood makes you related. It doesn't make you family. So
exactly.
But man, so I really, and recently this summer I played in a charity golf outing for the Max Soviak Foundation. And I had the honor of meeting Kareem's, I believe it was his XO, Major Ball, Jeff Ball.
Yeah.
He was such a nice guy.
He really is.
He struck me as somebody that he's got a lot to say, but he can't say anything. And I get it, but man, I hope one day he can open up about whatever he's, saw or he wants to say. He didn't say anything to me, but he just strikes me as somebody that was there and would have a lot to say. But he's working.
There's a lot that were there and have a lot to say, and they don't say it. For some, it's not because they think they're going to forget. It's because it's too hard. Because to talk about it, you have to relive it, and nobody wants to relive that. Nobody. So I don't blame them. A lot of them. I used to get upset and be like, well, this, this, and this. So why don't you talk about it? But now I'm like, I understand where you're coming from. You don't want to relive it. So to talk about it is have to relive it. So no.
I hope you guys don't start finding things out from books and movies, from people that want to make a few bucks on this. I hope there's not people that are just holding out for a payday, and that will be
You
really
know,
bad for you.
that is one of the things that I have watched. I have watched so many different people do things to make money off of the deaths of our fallen 13. And I would think to myself, like, how do you do that? How do you use the death of these beautiful kids for you to make yourself money? Like,
Right.
how disgusting. But there's people that still do it. So I'm
Mm.
sure eventually there'll be books out. I actually had started writing one. It was about it wasn't just Kareem's life. It was, you know, basically my life as a grieving mother. So my life before I became a grieving mother, and my life now as a grieving mother. But I didn't get far in it because I had to relive everything that I talked about, that I was putting there,
Right.
and it became so mentally and emotionally draining for me. Just a little bit that I did write, I did let a couple friends read, and it like brought them to tears. And they're like, "Geez, the way you write it makes people feel like they're seeing this, like they're there." It like hurt my heart, and I was like, "How do you think I feel
Right.
writing that? Because that is my heart going into there." And so I kind of stopped myself. And the thing was, it wasn't even to make money. It was, I mean, obviously I'd have to sell it because I'm going to have to put money to get it out there. But
Sure.
um, it was because I wanted not just Kareem's life told and my life told, but Dakota's. Because
Oh
my
yeah,
son Dakota,
absolutely.
yeah, my son Dakota, he has a story. And
See,
I
I
want to share.
honestly believe you have a story for a grieving, because Kareem's not going to be the last person that dies in battle. I mean, there's already been 5 others since the 13. A grieving mom is going to be grieving for their child, and that grieving mom or grieving dad is going to have other kids, and your story sounds like it would be a valuable resource for a grieving parent of multiple children, for someone that loses one. I mean, if for no other reason, you should, while as hard as it must be to relive all that, hopefully if you do decide to do it, I mean, I know it would help somebody, in their
Well,
going through their grief. I think that would be a great resource for somebody.
yeah, I think it would be helpful to mostly women. Women grieve differently than men, so which is weird, and which I have found out. But hold on, I'll let you out in a second. Sorry, he wants to go. Hold on, I have to put up my other dog so I can let him out. He needs to go to the bathroom. But yeah, so I haven't said, oh, I'm not going to do it. I just have to make sure it can't be in the months of August and September that I'm writing it, because these are
Right.
extremely hard months. Both my boys, I lost them both in August, and then I buried them both in September. So I have to do it in a month where I can put my mind in a different place. Yeah, relive what I'm writing, but also be able to walk away from it and go get myself back into a better mindset, to where right now I would have a hard time getting myself back into a better mindset. Does
Right.
that make
Oh,
sense?
and I completely understand. But hopefully one day when you do decide to sit down and put pen to paper, I know for a fact that people will want to buy it and read it and thank you for it, and I know I'd buy a copy. So,
I would send you one.
I would buy one. So, but listen, you have taken almost 2 hours talking to me, and I really appreciate this. And I feel like I've gotten to know Dylan and Dakota a little better.
And Kareem.
And did I say Dylan? I meant Kareem and Dakota. I'm sorry. Um,
I know.
and I'm so grateful that you took this time to talk to me. And is before we go, is there anything else that you'd want people to know about Kareem and Dakota before we go?
Just that they were both beautiful human beings inside and out. Kareem loved his job. He loved being a Marine. I don't want people thinking, oh, how sad he became a Marine and he died. Kareem absolutely loved being a Marine. That was his dream job since he was a little kid, and he achieved that dream. He reached that goal. He didn't get to finish it out, but at least he reached it, I just want people to remember that both my boys were amazing people in every way with beautiful hearts. I don't want them remembering Kareem as a political pawn for a political agenda. That's not what he died for. Do not look at him that way. I would never use him in that way ever. Just remember him for somebody who loved life and lived it to the fullest. He lived it to the fullest. Both my boys did. And that's what I want him remembered for.
Well, it sounds like you're an amazing and a strong mom, and I have a lot of admiration and, respect for how you raised all your kids. And, I'm proud to know you. So again, like I started, I'm sorry we had to meet this way. But I'm proud to know you. And even though you didn't hear it 3 years ago from the president, I would like to thank you for your son's service and for his sacrifice. And I will help try to keep his memory alive.
Thank you.
Any way I can. So including with sharing this, with anybody that would want to watch it. So I really appreciate you taking this time and sharing the story of both of your boys with me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Well, you've probably spent enough time talking to me. So almost 2 hours. So I really appreciate it. And I hope we can talk again soon.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Okay. Well, have a good evening.
You too. Get down, baby.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, let me try to get through this. On September 4th, 2021, Max's sister Marilyn asked me to make something to be displayed at her brother's funeral. She asked if they could buy or borrow one, and my response to Marilyn was absolutely not, but I will donate one to you. That was when my relationship, not only with the Soviets, but with the families of all 13 heroes began. Marilyn and Allie are here today with me, and I couldn't be more grateful. We can't promise to never forget if we don't even learn their names or their stories. Please join me in saying their names out loud. Maxton Soviak. Dylan Marola. Jared Schmitz. Kareem Nikoui. Nicole G. Dagan Page. Darren Hoover. Riley McCollum. Johanny Rosario Pachado. Hunter Lopez. Humberto Sanchez. David Espinoza. And Army Staff Sergeant Ryan Christian Knaus. We owe it to these 13 heroes to honor their sacrifice and try to live our best lives. Help our neighbors, honor our veterans, be the best we can be, and be worth dying for. I may never have met Maxton or the other 12 heroes, but I'm honored to have sworn the same oath as them. Thank you.